Well, if we want to go ahead and get started, then I think whenever you're ready, Tobias.
All right, so I'm just going to do my basic intro and leadway to what brought us all here together this evening. So I want to thank all those who have joined us and set aside some time to be a part of this presentation and discussion regarding the Essex-Hudson Greenway project. I definitely want to make a note that this is being recorded. And so this project aims to create 9 miles of linear park spanning Essex and Hudson counties. So that sounds very major to me. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Tobias Fox. I am founder and managing director of Newark Science and Sustainability, Inc. I'm also lead facilitator for the Newark Community Food System. Joining me today is Lauren Rushing, Communications and Community Engagement Manager of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. We hope to learn more about that. Lauren will be leading the presentation shortly. So this initiative was brought to me by, at least was brought to my attention by the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. I've been closely working with the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, or NJLCV, for some months now, and I'm learning a great deal about political organizing, that's for sure. I'll add a link to the New Jersey or NJLCV in the chat if anyone wants to look them up. So today is an opportunity to learn much more about the Essex-Hudson Greenway project, and I'm looking forward to Lauren's presentation. Following Lauren's presentation, we'll open up the floor for discussion. So feel free to post questions in the chat as they arise. I know I have a few questions of my own. I also want to add that on July 9th, 2021, Newark City Council approved a resolution of support for the Essex-Hudson Greenway initiative. So I will now take a step back and ask Lauren to take a step forward as she prepared to guide us through her presentation. Lauren?
All right, good evening, everybody. And thank you, Tobias, for that introduction. And thanks for inviting us to speak tonight. It's been wonderful to get connected and to be connecting further with some of your members. And I do want to make a note as well that we also have with us Deborah Kagan, who is the executive director of the organization I work for, the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. So we're just excited to be here and to be sharing more about this project with you. Let me get my screen up here and then we'll get started. Go full screen first. Let's see if I can get this on the first shot. Okay, you should be seeing the full screen of my presentation. Can someone confirm with me?
Yes, you can see it.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, so tonight I'll talk a little bit about, I want to introduce you to the project itself and give you some fun facts and catch you up on the current status. And we'll also talk a little bit about the benefits that we're excited to see from the project. And then finally, I'll talk about ways you can support the project if you like. And then I think at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Oh, and also either Deb or Nieves, I think actually it would need to be Deb, since you're co-host on the Zoom, could you keep an eye on admitting people while I'm presenting?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Awesome, thank you. And then at the end, we're gonna have plenty of time for Q&A. So we're just eager to hear any of your thoughts or questions about the project and just to have a conversation with you guys at that time. So without further ado, welcome to the Essex-Hudson Greenway project. Next slide, there we go. So there are 3 organizations that make up the core project team. The first is the Open Space Institute. They're a national conservation leader and land trust. And then we have the 9/11 National Memorial Trail, who actually just received their national designation, I think it was last week. And they're hoping to use the Essex-Hudson Greenway as a segment of their trail. And then of course we have the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, and we are leading the advocacy and community outreach for the project. So first, we'll start with what is the Essex-Hudson Greenway. And Tobias talked a little bit about it in his introduction, but just to set the framework for the presentation, the Greenway is an 8.6 mile shared use path, a proposed shared use path and transportation corridor that would go through two of the most densely populated counties in the country, actually, Essex and Hudson. It also connects 8 municipalities between Montclair and Jersey City and 2 of New Jersey's largest cities, Newark and Jersey City. Just to get you oriented here, the Greenway would come into Newark at the north end of Branchbrook Park. It passes the old Tiffany building and then crosses over Mount Prospect Avenue and also both Broadway and MacArthur Highway further east, just before crossing the Passaic River here. And I'll just introduce you to a few fun facts about the project. So the Greenway would provide 135 acres of new green space to what is estimated to be over 500,000 residents within a 1.5 mile radius in the surrounding communities. This map shows the existing green space in the region. And on the right is a zoom in of North Newark. And as you can see, the Greenway would not only offer green space in itself, but it would also serve to connect existing park and open space in the region. So the Greenway would also provide new transportation alternatives to more than 300,000 commuters within that same radius. This map here shows the existing transportation infrastructure in the region and how it would connect to the Greenway. The pink line is the Greenway itself, and then the purple lines with the circles are NJ Transit bus stops and bus lines. And then the pink dotted lines are existing bike lanes. So you can see here that there are already a few bike lanes in Newark that would connect to the Greenway and would offer safe options for getting to and from the Greenway using active transportation. Another important part of the project is that the subterranean rights, or the space underneath of the surface, is also included in the purchase of the property. So this allows for the project to be more than just an infrastructure project, but also an environmental and a communications infrastructure project. And as we saw during Hurricane Ida, many other weather events over the past few years, the North Jersey region does experience a lot of serious issues with flooding, and rains currently overwhelm the existing infrastructure system, which results in sewage backing up into streets and basements, as some people here may even know, and rivers. So the municipalities could actually face fines from the Department of Environmental Protection if nothing is done about these flooding issues. And these facilities are currently part of the proposal. So that space underneath of the Greenway would be used to incorporate what's called combined stormwater overflow facilities. And then lastly, the underground space could also be used for broadband connections for internet services, so providing Wi-Fi. The Greenway would also connect to existing trails in the region, such as the East Coast Greenway and the 9/11 National Memorial Trail. As I mentioned, they would be looking at using using the Greenway for a segment of their trail. And you can see in this graphic that the Essex-Hudson Greenway would serve as a spine for what could be the beginning of an urban trail network that would connect all these different trails across the region. The right-of-way for the Greenway property spans an average of 100 feet. This map shows the width of the right-of-way as you move along the line. And in Newark, most of the Greenway is between 90 feet to 120 feet, with some even wider sections in that area near the Passaic River. And those sections could be up to 180 feet wide. So this is quite large, and it opens up a lot of possibilities for what can be done with this space, in addition to providing a walking and biking path. And you'll see here in the green bubbles, these graphics just also give you a feel for how the property rises and falls below street level as you move along the line. The Greenway would also provide better non-driving access to schools. You'll see on this map that the darker green bubbles represent 1/4 of a mile radius, while the larger lighter green bubbles are 1 mile. And there are actually more than 60 schools within a 1 mile radius of the Greenway, and that's for the entire 8.6 miles. But in Newark, some of those schools include Park Elementary, Bridge Street Elementary, and Broadway Junior High School. So the project also offers the opportunity to develop safe routes to school projects that would connect to the Greenway and allow kids to bike and walk to school safely. The Greenway would also connect many diverse communities, and we're still doing some deeper research looking at the data and the demographic makeup of the surrounding communities, but this map just gives you kind of a taste of that. And this shows the percentage of households that speak a language other than English at home. So you can see that in Newark, it is quite diverse in that there is between 51 and 75% of households that speak a first language other than English at home. And now I'll talk a little bit about the benefits that we hope to see from the project. When looking at similar projects across the country, there is a wide range of benefits that we see. The first being improvements to community health. As I mentioned before, the Greenway would connect trails and parks, giving people easier and more access to green space for essential exercise for mental and physical health. Something that we've all learned to value more in the last couple of years with COVID. And ideally, it would lead to less air pollution and less health complications like asthma due to air pollutions, and by reducing the amount that people are driving in the area. And I didn't include it in this presentation, but I did read a statistic recently that children in Newark are actually 3 times more likely to have asthma than the national average. So this is definitely something that we should be thinking about. The project also offers several benefits to transportation and equitable mobility by providing safe and non-driving transportation options. Having more non-car based options would also advance social equity by making life easier for households that can't afford to drive. And it would also provide viable transportation options that would offer more independence for people who can't drive, of which we know there are many, including children and elderly and people who are mobility challenged. And then economic development is, of course, the easiest benefit to measure. And what we've seen with other projects is that greenways do increase economic activity in surrounding areas. And they also create new jobs from planning and design and construction and maintenance as well. They also attract regional tourism. For example, people come to rent bikes and ride on the Greenway. And in New Jersey, it's interesting to note that regional recreational tourism actually already provides $12 billion annually to the state. And then so for this group, I want to give a little bit more attention to the environmental benefits or the benefits to conservation and sustainability. So the project offers the potential to do habitat and landscape restoration. There are several invasive species that now inhabit the property, and part of its development could involve reintroducing new native species. The Greenway would also keep intact this continuous corridor, which, since it has been abandoned for so long, already connects to the meadowlands and serves as habitat for several wildlife species. We already talked a little bit about the potential for providing access and connectivity to park space in the context of health, but this new green space would also provide natural areas that could help reduce the heat island effect, and so it would cool down our urban spaces. And then we also talked about the potential for incorporating combined stormwater overflow facilities. But the landscaping along the Greenway could also be used, that space could be used for rain gardens and bioswales, and things that would contribute to solutions for flooding by more natural means. And then finally, the extra space that we talked about could also be used potentially for urban gardening and urban farming. And again, I just briefly mentioned the project's potential to reduce air pollution in the context of health. But as we know, reducing greenhouse gases is also incredibly important in reaching climate change goals. So it's no secret that Americans drive a lot, 3.23 trillion miles a year to be exact. And alongside national emissions reduction goals, the NJDEP has also set a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. So the conversations around like what's sexy in sustainability, especially nationally, have focused a lot on electric vehicles. But recently there's been research that shows that even with a fully electric fleet, we're still going to have to reduce the amount that we drive by at least 20%. So, if part of reducing emissions means that we have to be driving less, The only way that we're ever going to do that is if there are safe and convenient transit, biking, and walking alternatives. And safe alternatives means providing safe infrastructure that allows space for those alternatives. So the Greenway would be a big contribution to that in the North Jersey region. And then kind of to tie all of these benefits together, we know that there have been communities that historically have had to share more of have had to bear more of the health, environmental, and safety burdens of our society. We know that people of color are 3 times more likely to breathe polluted air. We know that CSO communities, which are communities that experience these more severe flooding issues, have a higher percentage of low-income residents. And we know that people of color are also disproportionately represented in fatal pedestrian crashes. So a unique thing about this project is that it does run through some of these communities in North Jersey. And here on the left, you can see the communities that have been identified as overburdened communities under the environmental justice law. And a lot of the tracts in Newark have been identified as being both low income and minority communities. And then the map on the right looks at census data identifying the percent of population whose income in the past 12 months is below poverty level. And these percentages are also relatively high in the parts of Newark nearest to the proposed Greenway project. So we really see a lot of potential here to bring this wide spectrum of benefits to the communities that really need it. And then lastly, I just also want to add that this type of project has enormous potential to foster community. It connects people to the history of their city by preserving historic sites. It connects to city landmarks. It would also build upon the identity of the city and create a stronger sense of place. And then it also offers new public spaces for places to gather as a community, to have events, to have community programming. So when thinking about the interests of this group in particular, as I mentioned, there could be space for urban gardening that could also be accompanied by community programming that would educate youth on urban farming and other sustainable practices. So this is a rendering of what the Greenway could look like. This shows a section in Kearney in kind of the more suburban western part of the line. And this shows how that space could really be used for more than a walking and biking path, but could also include rain gardens, bioswales, enhanced tree cover, and places for gathering. This is the section in Newark. So some of you may recognize the Tiffany building in the back right corner of this photo, of this rendering. And this would be a perspective looking from Mount Prospect Avenue. So this rendering really shows the potential for the Greenway to create new park and new public space in addition to a walking and biking trail. And then this is the last rendering. This is a rendering of the section going through the Meadowlands. And this shows how the Greenway would open up new access to nature in the Meadowlands and how it would provide options for recreational activities like kayaking and fishing alongside the walking and biking path. So I do need to mention that no design decisions have been made at this time, and those decisions will only be made through an intensive community engagement process. But this is just to kind of help us brainstorm and dream about what the possibilities could be. The project has a long history, and we won't go into that in detail today because that could be an entire other presentation. But the most exciting developments have happened really over the last year and a half. In the summer of 2020, the Open Space Institute, which you'll remember are our partners, successfully negotiated a purchase and sale agreement with Norfolk Southern, which is the rail company that currently owns the property. And we are now actively working with the governor's administration to help find a solution for funding and ownership so that we're able to acquire the rail line before that agreement ends in January of 2020. So that's coming up pretty soon here. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about our advocacy so far. So for the past 18 months, the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition has implemented an advocacy campaign that has been critical in bringing us very close to making the Greenway a reality. And the goal of this advocacy has been to show the governor that there is overwhelming and broad community support for this project. So just a few facts about our advocacy. There have been more than 7,000 letters of support that have been sent to county and state officials. The project now has more than 120 supporting organizations across the state. And then, as Tobias mentioned, there have been resolutions of support passed, not only by Essex and Hudson County, but also by 9 towns along the line. And there were actually 2 resolutions that were passed by Newark. One was more recently, back in July, and they had actually passed an original resolution about 1 year before that in 2020. So in addition to all that, we also have a long list of supporters that includes mayors, council members, and county and state leaders, and have had a lot of positive media coverage, which some of you may have seen. So we're here tonight to inform you about the project, but we also need your help in continuing to build that community support before the deadline runs out. So if you would like to see this project happen, if you think this is something that would be good for your community, then now is really the moment to make your voice heard. And I just want to talk for a minute about a few ways that we want to ask you to do that. So first, you can call Governor Murphy at this number here. You can also email the governor's deputy chief of staff with a message that this project is important to you and that you want to see it happen. We have actually spoken with Deborah, and we do know that she does read these emails, and we feel that, well, actually we don't feel, we know that they have made a very big impact already in bringing the governor's administration to the table. So if you have any question about whether or not that makes a difference, we can tell you that it truly does. And then we also want to ask you to just tag the governor on social media with a short message to make the project a priority. We've also been told that they track these taggings on social media. So we also feel that that makes a big difference. And then lastly, there is a digital letter of support on the website. So you can go there right now. It takes 1 minute to sign your name and to send this letter of support to the governor. And then this is also something that if you're looking to help out and you want to continue spreading the word about this project, this is something that's very easy to share with your family and friends and colleagues. And then if you represent an organization, or if you're involved in other organizations that you think would be interested in supporting the project, also know that they can become supporting organizations. So this doesn't require any financial commitment. It is just a public display of support, and we add these organizations to our list of supporters on our website. And you can find the form at this link here. I'll also drop it in the chat in a few minutes here. And then finally, we're just always happy to hear if you have recommendations for who we should reach out to in your community. You guys know your community best, and Deb and Nieves and I are not local to all of these communities. So we would absolutely love to work with you to do deeper outreach. So that concludes my presentation. You can find my contact information here. I'll also drop that in the chat. And then we've got Deb and our other colleague, Nieves Paminta, who is our bilingual community engagement manager. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. And I think with that, Tobias, I'll turn it back over to you and we can jump into some Q&A.
Okay, great. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Actually, yeah, I learned a great deal just from, it wasn't a lengthy presentation, but it was definitely highly informative.
Thank you.
Yeah, so cool.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that was really cool. And so I personally just have some general questions. If you don't mind, I'd just like to just jump right into it.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I mean, it seems like a very massive, but much needed project. So when I see stuff like that, I immediately start thinking of like Central Park, But what could be one of the major drawbacks to prevent this from happening? Is it just money?
If I understand your question right, you're asking kind of like, what is the biggest obstacle to making this happen?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so funding and ownership are the 2 big obstacles, I would say. And that's what we're working with the governor on now. So we've asked him to make this a state park. So we need him to identify state funding for the purchase of the property. And we've also asked him to identify a state department that could take on ownership of the project.
Okay. Um, and then you were showing some mock-ups, and you said that there's no design decisions kind of made yet. I'm curious, who would actually be involved in the designing stage of this project?
Yeah, so we are at the very beginning of this. And so unfortunately, there are a lot of uncertainties moving forward in terms of like who will be responsible for the project, who would be managing it, and who would be making a lot of the decisions. But I
Mhm.
can say that planning and design will move forward with a community engagement process. So I think that's part of what the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition is trying to do, is that this phase is about building support for the project so that we can get past the point of acquisition. But it's also about building a community that we can engage at the point of planning and design to be involved in a lot of those decisions and to give us community input for what this project should look like.
Right. Well, I saw most of the names that was in your slide, organizations from Newark, I'm very familiar with.
Oh,
Just
good.
about all of them, or most of them, not all of them. Um, how long do you think a project like this, would take in terms of in its completion? Once construction starts today, how long you think it would take?
Yeah, so that's a question that everyone asks. And unfortunately, we just don't have an answer for you at this time. But what I can tell you is that projects like this often happen in phases. And there are definitely there are a lot of bridges along the line, for example, and some of those bridges present a little bit more of an engineering or a planning challenge. So there might be some sections that would be easier and would be developed first. But at this point, we're just not far enough down the line to even give a timeline.
Fair enough. Tanisha Malcolm, we know each other. Um, she asked, I guess it's a part two. Is it a phased approach? How are you approaching this? It's like a massive project. You're going through different county lines, city lines, um, and I guess the governor could authorize those, because every city has its own political makeup, it seems, in New Jersey, right? And so I'm just trying to myself understand I guess the political structure of creating a project like this in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Because it's not like New York City where you can say, okay, well, the mayor gave approval to go uptown to downtown. But here in New Jersey, you're actually going in different cities and two different counties. And
Yeah.
then Tanisha's part question as well. You can see that.
I'm not sure. And is it a phase approach? Okay. Yeah. So the fact that it is multi-jurisdictional does make it different than a lot of other projects. But I think I'm actually going to let Deb step in on this one because I'm not exactly sure how to answer that myself. And I think Deb has a little bit more experience with that
Right.
kind of.
Because I'm just curious, like if a city, if Kearney has the mayor or I just can't see anyone saying no. But if a mayor says, "Oh no, we don't want this," or the council said, "We don't want this in our city," and the project have to go through their particular jurisdiction, how is that? How do one approach that? Do everyone? I don't know. Does the governor over- kind of like override some of those decisions because of the nature of the project and how it is benefit the good of the community, so forth? Just curious.
Well, I think part of the answer is that it would be the property would be owned by the state. So this,
Mhm.
I mean, Deb, step in if I'm saying anything wrong. But my impression is that it would be owned by the state. So the state can do what they like with the property. But that given that they have relationships with the municipalities along the line and it does impact them, I would hope that their community engagement process would involve, bringing them in on it.
I hear
Um,
you.
It is it's a very complicated project, exactly the way you're talking about it. And we don't yet know what the structure will be that will develop it,
Hmm.
what agency from the state will develop it. But
Okay.
Lauren is right. The actual right of way, the idea is that the right of way intact, meaning the whole corridor, which is now owned by the railroad, would become the property of the state.
Okay.
Now, that said, nobody wants the state to come in and make all the decisions, right? So we have been working really hard to make connections in all the communities, including the elected officials and the community organizations and residents and people who live along the line, so that people will have a voice in how it's actually developed, right? And have an input into what are the best ways that this space could meet the needs of that particular community and how it could reflect the identity of that community. And after the money is raised to buy it, there's a process also of trying to get funding to develop it, right? And an important part of that phased process is that municipalities, towns, and the cities can apply for grants from federal and state money. So this has to be a project that the towns and the community and the state are working together to complete. And it's very important that people know about it and have a say and have their voices heard. That's the way that there'll be buy-in from the community. And that's really how this project will actually become important and vibrant and a dynamic part of the region. So that's a process. And you're right, sections of it may get built before others, because like there's a section that goes over the Hackensack Bridge and River, and there's not a bridge there right now to do this. So that's going to be a difficult challenge to figure that piece out. Other pieces aren't as challenged engineering wise. And usually there's a phase in, right? You do sections of it and build it out. So all of that will require input from the community to make it really, something that the communities feel part of. And you're going to have to, there'll be fundraising, and we are looking at governance structures that would be not only the state, but also some type of a private entity, like a friends group that would help develop it and raise money.
Gotcha. It sounds very exciting, and I can see architects bidding like crazy for something like this. I can just, because I'm now working with different architects. We stepped into the world of green construction, and so this is definitely it sounds very exciting to me, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully something like this can occur within a decade or so. We shall see. Anyone else with any questions out there? Thanks for putting that digital letter link. I was going to ask you for that for myself.
Yeah, of course.
I definitely will make sure I sign on to that as well. And your presentation was very thorough, very good, because you really answered a lot of the questions that I had. I thought I was going to be putting you guys on the spot, but
we've done this a time or two.
Didn't work out as planned, but maybe on the next project, And so I come from a world of now I don't come from a world, but I'm heavily engaged in the world of urban agriculture, and so so thanks for even mentioning the possibility of that. Those types of green space community engagement pieces can, there's possibilities for those things to happen. So I appreciate that much.
Yeah, of course. That's one of the more exciting things is like the right of way is so wide, which I didn't know this before I was working on this project, but it's quite wide compared to other projects like this, compared to just other trails that we've seen around New Jersey. So there is a lot of potential here and that's why I said that so much, that there's all this extra space, and I want to be selling people on the fact that like there is this extra space. Let's start thinking now about what we can do with it. And that's another reason why being a part of the process at this early stage is so important, so that you can be there to say, hey, we want to do urban agriculture.
Lauren,
Yeah.
I think Nima has a question.
Yes, Nima.
Hi, it's Naima. This has really been informative. I've been hearing about this project for years now, and I think it was people were still calling it the ice and iron. So to hear it really come this far, and Open Space Institute the way I understood it, Open Space provided the funds to be able to acquire the rail line, or just trying to understand what their role is in this process. That's my first question. And then, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify that point before you go on, the Open Space Institute is a land trust, and they were brought on to help negotiate an agreement. So they got the railroad to agree to sell it to become a greenway, but they don't provide the money. That's what we're looking to the state, and that's why we're advocating to the governor that the state will have to buy it and put up the money.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I was like, they're a big land trust, but I'm not hearing a question of them saying they're going to put it in trust or, acquire the rights, conservation easements and things like that. But as I was listening and thinking about the different communities and the different economic makeups of those communities, I thought of like two things: displacement and then also job creation. So along the lines of displacement, do you have any information about the breakdown between renters and homeowners along the rail line, and if they're at risk for displacement, meaning raising rents because you're bringing this great cultural environmental asset to the community? And then the second part of that is job creation. This is going to be a huge construction project. It's going to need lots of ongoing maintenance. How is the team thinking about engaging the process to get that built in now and not as a last minute add-on that could not be enforced or holding people accountable to?
Yeah, Deb, would you want to take this one as well?
You take it?
I can start to answer it, and then maybe you can come in behind me and okay.
So start it out.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself a lot here, but I'll go back to kind of what I said earlier, and that is that, we are at such an early stage of this that a lot of like what this is going to look like in terms of who manages it, who's making the decisions is really unknown. And even as NJ Bike and Walk, we don't really know what our role is going to be in the future with this project. So it is hard to say, like when you're asking about providing jobs, we do expect it to be providing a lot of jobs. And I mean, my job is literally funded by the project right now. And we only expect to see more of that. But in terms of like who gets those jobs and who's making the decisions about getting those jobs is just not something that we're able to really answer right now. But I can say that we are doing what we feel we can at this point to make sure that this will be an inclusive project. And Deb, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, like we've looked a lot at the example of the Atlanta Beltline when you ask about raising property values and housing. And that was something that if you're not familiar with that project, that would be a good one to look into, the Atlanta Beltline. They experienced some issues with that. So we've hired a consultant to look into that example so that we can be learning lessons and picking up best practices and thinking about how we might do that differently and how this project can really serve the needs of the existing community and enhance the value of the existing community as opposed to displacing it. Is that, Deb, is there anything that you want to add?
I'll just add a little bit. So certainly displacement is not a new question. That's been, did we lose?
Naima? Well, she definitely raised some good points. So if you want to just continue.
Sure, I'll finish it anyway. It's not a new question. Certainly other people have raised it. It's a very important question for us to look at. We are, as Lauren mentioned, we're looking at different case studies. Here, I got to admit her back in. Sorry, she just.
Okay.
I'll wait till she gets back in.
Just a reminder that this is recorded, so the playback will be even better.
Name and, sorry, we missed you, but I started to also answer your question. Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
sorry, I had technical difficulties. My apologies.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So as Lauren had mentioned, we are working with a consultant to try and put together some examples of how dislocation has been dealt with in a good way in some other projects. And recently there was a Complete Street Summit. The Deputy Director for Equity from the Department of Environmental Protection from New Jersey answered this question as well. And it comes down to a lot of work locally, because the actual railroad would be owned by the state if all goes well. But the property around it, where there's housing, where the issue of dislocation comes up, is really about the zoning and things that can be done locally. So this is a conversation that has to happen locally. Again, this is another reason why there has to be real involvement from the local municipality. There are ways and policies that can be made to protect people as property values may rise along a greenway like this. And that's something that we want to make sure that the communities are working with their local elected officials to make sure that does not happen for this project. And
I know in Newark, I just want to add that that I've had friends who had to deal with this issue of new development coming in. Let's just say the Hang Building, as some of us know, are familiar with, downtown Newark, where Whole Foods Market is located, and a few other establishments. But there was a property owner, residential property owner, who tried to increase his tenants' rent because this new building, this new development was coming up near his property, and thankfully there's policy in place in Newark that prevents that from happening. And so the tenants went to City Hall and they just said, no, you can't do that. You just can't raise up your property because there's new development going on 2 blocks down from you. And so I'm hoping that this type of advocacy could spread to other municipalities if this or when this development occurs. I just want to add to that point.
that would be actually very helpful to know some of the details of that policy. If you can point us in the direction of finding out some more information, I'd love to see what's actually in the policy, and it might apply directly to the work that we're going to be doing. So that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I would like to add something to the job creation, Naima. Not only the jobs that it's going to be created, but also as a form of transportation, it will be the active transportation, which is it's going to be walking and bicycling. And as we saw, the Greenway provides, and it becomes a connector to other points of public transportation. So that means that transportation becomes more accessible and equitable. And if we can get there, it's an option. So many times we hear we have openings here and there, but the person cannot get there. So by providing another way of getting there, either by walking, biking, or making a connection, that means we're opening up possibilities for our communities. And let's not forget that almost 40% of Newark they do not own a car. So they basically rely on walking, bus, or taking a ride with someone. And not that we cannot walk and bike, but this time they're going to make it basically more secure, and it's going to be safer. So, it opens up to jobs that maybe were not a possibility for them because they cannot get there. So I just wanted to add that we have to maybe expand our vision of all the benefits that it's going to have. The obvious ones are there, but becoming a connector, it just brings so much other possibilities to get to the destination of our choice.
Good point.
Well said.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Really appreciate that.
So anyone else, any questions, thoughts, concerns? Naima, you really was very helpful with bringing your list of questions. I appreciate that very much. And not being shy about your questions as well. So I appreciate that even more. Anything else anyone wants to add to this initiative? Again, there's been links posted in the chat. A thank you for the digital letter. I definitely want to add to that. I want to make just copied it for myself so I can remind myself to go to the letter after this this chat.
Yeah, and since I set up registration, I actually have everyone's emails, so I can send a follow-up email with that information as well in case you didn't grab it here.
Awesome, and definitely with the YouTube link leading people to the video. That'd be awesome.
And that as well. Yeah, that might take me a day or so to get it up, but I will send it out. Yeah.
We can wait. I mean, I think we have. How long will this take for this project? You know?
Yeah, right. Well, but there is, I do want to repeat, since you said that there is a sense of urgency for purchasing the property. So there is a sense of urgency for getting the digital letter and sending it to the governor.
Gotcha.
So yes, after it's purchased, once, if we hope so, we will have to come back and present the next step.
Adopted. And I'd love to hear from anybody who has, with not a question, but just a comment about what they think of the project. I'd love to just hear people's reaction to it in general.
Right. Anyone want to speak up, share their thoughts about what they saw, if they saw the presentation, or what they heard, or what they feel about having, nearly 9 miles of just Greenway passage. I grew up maybe a block away from a park that I appreciated, and I always was a little jealous of people who grew up across the street from Weekway Park or Branchwood Park, because it was just so much greenery, and I just always thought that I could enjoy life a lot more if I had a full park like that next to me. But anyone else want to share their thoughts about what they've seen, heard regarding this project? Everyone shy? Okay.
Well, I'll just, since we have a smaller group here and a little bit of time, I'll just reiterate that we are continuing our community outreach until we have a formal commitment from the governor. We feel positive about our conversations with them, but until we get that formal commitment, the deal's not done. And even after that, like I said, we are working to build this network that could, maybe even form a foundation for some sort of friends of group eventually. So, and you guys know Newark a lot better than us. And Tobias, I plan to follow up with you after this. And I know you're busy, but we would love to continue working with you, even in some small way, to help identify, other organizations in Newark, your connections and other organizations that you work with. And then if anyone here if anything comes to mind or has recommendations or would like to help us with that, we do have a small volunteers network if anyone is interested in getting involved, which Marilyn is a part of. Thank you, Marilyn. And she's already done some awesome stuff for us. So often people don't think about the connections that they have in their own communities. But even just like if you're a parent on the PTA, if you have a kid that is doing Boy or Girl Scouts, things like that, even like we're trying to reach everyone. Right now, we just have a broad approach to getting the word out as much as we can and building support for the project. So we'd love to hear any kind of recommendations or thoughts from you guys on how to do that better in Newark.
So we're in an election season, and does this have any weight on this project being created?
Well, Deb, I'm gonna punt that one to you. The election's what, 2 weeks away?
Right.
We had hoped, but I don't know. We're not getting that feeling.
There's a couple of things that have happened recently. There was just, the Murphy administration has just released their final report on resiliency for the state of New Jersey. That happened last week. And the exciting thing is that the orientation of that report really lines up well with this project, that the goals that the state has identified and some of the strategies that they've identified for building resiliency and building back better in New Jersey are very much in line with this project. So I think there's some synergy of thinking. And I think that we're getting that sort of message in terms of generally how the administration is progressing, but whether or not it will become an issue of the election is, we've only got 4 or 5 days, so we'll have to see. But the word is definitely out there, and people, because so many people have already sent in digital letters, and as Lauren mentioned, it makes a tremendous difference. They have told us they are listening. So I think even if we don't hear before the election, I think that the amount of advocacy and people's voices is going to make a difference in the future. So that's the best I can say.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we don't know.
I think that's good. You definitely have gained a lot of support, it seems, for this project. And whichever way the election goes, I don't think it will, I personally don't think it will hurt the momentum of this project. And so I think a person would want to support it in the best way possible. The only thing that could slow things up, again, is the purchasing, I think. And then there'll be, after that is purchased, and there's be this huge bidding war I can just see going on for people wanting to be a part of this initiative. And so it sounds really exciting. I mean, I never walked 9 miles.
You don't have to walk the whole thing. You can walk
Maybe
Newark to, the Meadowlands.
You don't have to do it the same day. You can walk the 9 miles, but not the same day. That's fine.
Right, the same day. Okay, right. And so so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I have a question. Hi, everybody. This is
Hey,
Marianne.
hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
And Marianne, this project is going through possibly your backyard because you're in the North Ward.
Yes.
In the Forest Hills section of the North Ward with Branchville Park.
Okay, I have to find something that shows exactly the layout. But what I was wondering is how wide is the right-of-way that you already have?
So it's an average of 100 feet across the almost 9 miles.
Oh, that's not very big. Okay.
I think it's big.
Well,
it's big enough to do some things with it.
Is it, are there some areas where it's like raised in elevation?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Within Newark, I'm not sure, but along the line in general, yes.
No,
Okay,
just to be clear, what you're thinking of, Lauren, I think is the land does vary. So sometimes the rail line is below grade and sometimes it's above grade, but the rail line is flat and it is not going to be elevated like the High Line. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to run along what exists now, where
everything is on the ground.
Yeah.
Whether it's the ground is high or low, everything
Correct.
Is on the ground. There are no bridges or anything like that.
There are bridges, but the bridges again are flat. They go over either rivers or over overpasses over some of the streets and highways now. So the whole idea is that the railroad was built to go flat, but the land goes down and up. And there are some points where the railroad is at street level and some points where it's down like the rail line is down in a gully, and sometimes it's up like on a hill. But it's actually flat. It's the land that does change. So people ask this because they're wondering if it's going to be elevated like the High Line, and it won't.
And also, if you're biking or walking on it, you're not going to be going at an incline or a decline. It will be flat.
Right.
How dependent is this project on getting more property on either side? That's where I'm going with my question.
Yeah, it's not dependent on that. It's literally the right of way is literally only the land that is currently owned by the railroad. Okay. And that's already exists by the railroad. So the idea is to buy that land. And any land that's outside of that is separate from this project in terms of owning it.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. They do it they did it a similar project. Well, the Highlands is similar, even though it's raised in a lot of areas. The one there's a park in DC, in the DC area, I should say, that is similar to that. They use the right of way to create, parkland, and it's, very nice and beneficial to the community.
Yeah, DC has a great trail network that they've been building, and some of that is along abandoned rail lines. You're right. It's great there.
I'm not familiar with the one in Atlanta, though. Is that a rail line as well, the Beltway?
Was that a rail line, Deb?
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, Lauren mentioned it because it goes through the city, so in that way, it's similar to going through Newark or to Jersey City for a trail. It's a huge project, and it includes some rail line and some not, I believe. But it's a multi-shared path, meaning you could bike or walk on it, and no cars.
Yeah,
and that's a long project. That one.
Yeah, that one's been, I think they've been working on that for like 20 years.
Yeah, and we raised it because they thought, they developed it with the understanding that there were going to be housing issues and neighborhood, issues that the trail would go through, and that's why we're doing a case study to sort of understand that dynamic, how that went.
So if it's 20 years old, then it started around the time of the Olympics. Is that correct?
I don't remember what the timeline is for it exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall.
But I can get you that information if you want.
You don't have to. I'm just asking a question. I can get the information.
It's called the Atlantic Beltway.
Atlanta.
Okay. I'll
You
look
can
it up.
Google it. Yeah, it's easy to go.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Marianne. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. I missed the garden tour.
It's okay.
But I saw the pictures. It's great.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right. Any other questions? Any thoughts, concerns, ideas? Again, I think it's an awesome project. I know there's a lot of things that go into it, especially creating something, especially in New Jersey, because New Jersey is just filled with so many different municipalities. When you cross the street, a whole different city, township, and they have their own set of laws and rules. And so I'm just curious to see how this will all pan out politically. But we'll see.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Really, really appreciate it. And we will hopefully be following up with an update. Let you know what's happening. So, and feel free to contact us if you come up with any questions or comments or ideas. We're here, and we want to hear from you as we continue to develop the project. So, and thank you, Tobias, for hosting and organizing this. Terrific. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thanks
Thank you
again
so
for
much.
the op-ed, which is how we all got here. So
Yes, keep us all informed of the progress, please.
we will.
Absolutely.
We'll keep in touch.
We look forward to working with you on it.
Yep.
All
All right. Thank you,
right,
everyone.
with that said, we say good night to everyone. Thank you so much. Peace.
Okay, good night.
Thank you. Have a good
you.
evening.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.